The morning sun slowly climbed over the red mountains, painting the desert in golden light. Mark stood quietly near his tent, holding the carved amulet in his hand. The small eagle feather glowed faintly in the sunlight, as if it carried its own hidden warmth. He couldn't stop thinking about Naya, the Apache girl who had appeared so suddenly the night before and disappeared just as mysteriously before dawn. He turned the amulet over in his hand again and again. It looked old, maybe ancient. The beads and the tiny carvings were handmade with care, like something that belonged to a sacred tradition. He felt uneasy, not because he was scared, but because something about this felt meaningful, like she had left it on purpose. Mark packed up his camera and equipment, deciding to visit the nearby Apache village before leaving the mountains. He wanted to make sure Naya was safe, and maybe return her amulet if it truly belonged to her. The trail to the village took him through long stretches of dry land and sharp rocks. The sun grew hotter as the morning passed, but he kept walking, thinking about her stories, her quiet voice, and her strange words about returning something before the dawn. After nearly an hour of walking, he reached a small community of wooden houses and stone huts. A few children were playing outside, and elders sat together under a large tree. As Mark approached, he greeted them politely and asked if anyone knew a young woman named Naya. The moment he said her name, the group fell silent. The elder sitting nearest to him slowly looked up. His face was wrinkled, but his eyes were sharp and calm, full of years of wisdom. "Naya," the elder repeated softly. "Where did you see her?" Mark explained everything. How his jeep broke down, how she appeared from the darkness, how they talked by the fire, and how she disappeared before sunrise. He held out the amulet carefully, showing it to them. "She left this behind. I thought it might belong to her." The elder's hand trembled slightly as he reached for the amulet. He studied it for a long time before speaking. "This belongs to our tribe. It was lost a long time ago. You said she gave this to you?" "She didn't exactly give it," Mark said. "I just found it beside my bag this morning. I thought she might have dropped it." The elder exchanged glances with the others before turning back to Mark. "You are sure it was Naya?" "Yes," Mark replied. "She said her name was Naya. Long black hair, kind eyes. She said the mountains called her back." The elder sighed deeply and looked toward the distant hills. "My son," he said gently. "Naya was real. But she left this world many winters ago." Mark frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" The elder's voice was soft but heavy with emotion. "She was one of our daughters. Many years ago she was guarding sacred carvings near the Eagle Rock, symbols of our ancestors. One night a storm came and she never returned. We found her footprints near the cliff but never her body. We believed her spirit stayed in these mountains, protecting what was taken from our land." Mark felt his heart race. He didn't know what to say. "You mean, she's gone?" "But I saw her. I talked to her. She was real." The elder nodded slowly. "Sometimes when hearts are pure, spirits show themselves to those who listen. Maybe she saw something in you, a truth, a purpose." Mark felt a strange shiver run through him. He looked again at the amulet in his hand. Suddenly Naya's words echoed in his mind. "Some things must be returned before the dawn." The elder continued. "That amulet was taken from one of our sacred sites years ago by travelers who did not understand its meaning. Perhaps you photographed something connected to it." Mark thought for a moment, then realized the truth. A few days earlier he had found a hidden cave while exploring the canyon. Inside he had taken photos of beautiful ancient carvings, eagles, rivers, and sun symbols etched into stone. He hadn't touched anything, but maybe his camera had captured something sacred, something Naya was protecting. He looked at the elder and said quietly, "I think I know what she wanted me to return." The elder smiled kindly. "Then go back, my friend. Return it to the place where you saw those carvings. Speak to her spirit with respect. The mountains will listen." Mark thanked him and began his journey back toward the mountains. The path was long and silent. As he walked, memories from the night before filled his mind. The way Naya's voice blended with the wind. The way her eyes seemed to hold both sadness and peace. He now understood that her visit was not just chance. She had come to remind him that the land was alive, that every stone, every breeze carried history. When he reached the cave, the air felt cooler, almost sacred. The carvings on the wall seemed to shimmer in the sunlight filtering through the rocks. He stood there quietly, holding the amulet in his hands. He took a deep breath and spoke softly as if Naya could hear him. "I didn't mean to disturb anything. I came here to show the world your people's beauty, not to take what belongs to you. I think this is what you wanted back." He walked to a flat stone near the center of the cave and placed the amulet there carefully. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a gentle wind passed through the cave, swirling softly around him. It wasn't cold. It felt warm and peaceful, like a sigh of relief. Mark smiled slightly. "Thank you, Naya," he whispered, "for trusting me." As he turned to leave, he noticed something shining faintly on the wall, a reflection of light forming the shape of a feather. It lasted only a second before fading away, but Mark knew what it meant. She was at peace. When he finally returned to his Jeep, he found it working perfectly, even though he hadn't touched the engine since last night. It started with one turn of the key. He couldn't explain it, but he didn't try to. Some things, he realized, were meant to stay as mysteries. Weeks later, Mark published his story and photographs in a travel magazine, but this time he did it differently. Instead of focusing on adventure or beauty, he wrote about respect, about how the land remembers everything and how every culture carries stories worth protecting. He mentioned Naya, though not as a ghost or legend, but as a guardian of her people's truth. The story touched many hearts. Readers from around the world wrote letters saying it changed how they viewed nature and history. But for Mark, the greatest change was inside himself. He no longer traveled just to take pictures. He traveled to listen, to learn, and to honor the voices of the places he visited. Every year after that, he returned to the Arizona mountains. He would sit by the same rocks where his Jeep had once broken down, light a small fire, and watch the stars. Sometimes, when the wind moved softly through the desert, he could almost hear her voice again, gentle, calm, and filled with peace. He would smile and whisper into the night, "I kept my promise, Naya." And though no one else could see her, Mark always felt she was near, watching over the land, guiding the wind, and reminding him that kindness and respect never fade, not even between two worlds. That cold night had changed his life forever. He had come to the mountains as a traveler searching for a story, but he left as a man who understood something far greater, that every heart, every piece of land, and every forgotten soul has its own story waiting to be told, if only someone takes the time to listen. And so, in the quiet of the desert beneath the endless stars, a promise between a man and a spirit remained, unseen, unspoken, but everlasting. The sun was setting over the vast Arizona desert, painting the horizon in shades of orange and gold. The land was quiet except for the distant cry of an eagle and the whispering wind that carried the scent of dust and sagebrush. A lone cowboy named Samuel Hart rode his tired horse along a narrow trail that cut through the canyon. He had been traveling for days searching for lost cattle, but now he was just looking for a place to rest for the night. As he rode past a dry riverbed, he heard something strange, a faint cry carried by the wind. He stopped his horse and listened carefully. At first he thought it was just the sound of the wind playing tricks on his ears. But then he heard it again, soft, trembling voices calling for help. Samuel's heart quickened. He dismounted and followed the sound, moving cautiously between the rocks and dry bushes. When he reached a clearing, his eyes widened in shock. Hanging from a large oak tree were 5 young Apache women, tied by their hands and struggling to free themselves. Their feet barely touched the ground and their faces were pale from fear and exhaustion. Their traditional dresses were torn and dusty, and one of them was whispering prayers under her breath. The oldest sister saw Samuel and cried out, "Please help us." Her voice broke with desperation. Samuel quickly ran forward, looking around to see if anyone else was nearby. The tracks on the ground showed that several men had been there recently, likely bandits or bounty hunters who had left the sisters to die. The cowboy's jaw tightened. He wasn't a hero by choice. Life had hardened him, but he couldn't walk away from what he was seeing. He drew his knife and cut the first rope, then helped each sister down one by one. They were weak, trembling, and dehydrated. He gave them water from his canteen and tried to calm them. "You're safe now," he said softly. But inside, Samuel was worried. Whoever did this might return. He had to move them quickly. The sisters told him that they were daughters of a respected Apache elder. A group of outlaws had attacked their village, stealing their horses and supplies. The men had taken the sisters hostage, planning to sell them to a nearby settlement. When one of the sisters tried to escape, the outlaws punished them by hanging them from the tree, leaving them to die under the sun. Samuel clenched his fists as he listened. He had seen cruelty before, but this was worse than most things he'd witnessed on the frontier. As night began to fall, Samuel helped the sisters make a small fire in a cave nearby. He shared his food with them, just dried meat and biscuits, but they ate as if it were a feast. The youngest sister, only about 13, whispered a quiet, "Thank you." Samuel nodded but said little. He wasn't used to company. Later that night, as the fire crackled, one of the sisters asked, "Why did you help us, stranger?" Samuel hesitated. He didn't know what to say. Part of him wanted to claim he did it out of kindness, but the truth was more complicated. He had lost his own family years ago to bandits. Maybe saving these women was his way of making peace with his past. Still, Samuel knew the desert was full of danger. "You can't stay here," he told them. "Those men might come back." The oldest sister nodded. "We have a camp far from here. If we can reach it, our people will protect us." Samuel agreed to take them there, but deep down he knew the journey wouldn't be easy. They would have to cross miles of open desert with little food or water, and the outlaws could be following their trail. Before dawn, he saddled his horse and helped the sisters prepare to leave. The journey began in silence. The sand stretched endlessly and the heat grew unbearable. Samuel walked ahead, guiding them through dry gullies and rocky paths. Sometimes they rested under thorny trees, sharing drops of water between them. He tried to keep their spirits high with small words of hope. The sisters, despite their fear, showed quiet strength. They sang soft Apache songs to keep themselves calm, their voices rising and falling like the wind. One afternoon, Samuel noticed smoke in the distance. He stopped immediately. "Someone's out there," he whispered. The sisters froze. The smoke was coming from the direction they were heading. It could be their people or it could be the bandits. They decided to move carefully. As they got closer, they saw movement: horses, men, and wagons. Samuel climbed a hill to get a better view. His stomach tightened. It wasn't an Apache camp. It was the same gang that had left the sisters hanging. The men were laughing, drinking, and counting stolen goods. Samuel could even see the horses they had taken from the village. He went back to the sisters quietly. "It's them," he said. The oldest sister's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't panic. "We can't turn back," she whispered. "Our people are just beyond those cliffs. If we take another path, we can reach them by nightfall." Samuel nodded. It was risky, but they had no choice. As they moved again, the cowboy's mind raced. He had saved the sisters, but what came next would test his courage and his heart. He knew that if the gang discovered them, there would be no mercy. And yet he couldn't stop thinking about what one of the sisters had said earlier. "Why did you help us?" He looked back at the tired faces following him. The 5 sisters who had suffered so much yet still carried hope in their eyes. Samuel realized then that he hadn't saved them just to feel better about himself. He had done it because it was the right thing to do. Still, deep down, he knew he wasn't finished. A cowboy's world always came with a price, and soon he would have to pay his own.